Welcome, everyone. We have an interesting webinar today, and it's really in honor of February that we always think of Valentine's Day. And when we think about Valentine's Day, we think about all the people who are closest to us, all the people that we love, and how much joy that love and appreciation brings to our lives. So we're going to talk about how this can all be enhanced by way of behavioral rasayanas. Ayurveda has this category called behavioral rasayanas. So I'd like to begin simply by introducing myself because we have had so many people on our webinars who are really coming into Ayurveda for the first time and have never heard about the Raj. And so I'm going to quickly introduce myself. My name is Candace Badgett, and along with my husband, Rogers, we pioneered the use of Ayurvedic medicine in the West 33 years ago. And we built the Raj, a 36,000 square foot Ayurvedic campus in the cornfields of Iowa, Fairfield, Iowa, where we offer the traditional Panchakarma treatments of Ayurveda. And Ayurveda is the longest, oldest, continuously practiced system of medicine in the world, 6,000 years old. And it is being revised today because our healthcare systems need some help. We need prevention-oriented. We need no harmful side effects. We need safe and effective. And that is what Ayurveda is. And thanks to Maharishi Mahesh Yogi, he revived this whole tradition, which was being lost, quickly lost, back in the early 1980s. So it's been our privilege to share with the world the amazing, rejuvenating and curative abilities of this beautiful system of healthcare. So, as said, today we're going to be talking about behavioral rasayanas. Now, in Ayurveda, a rasayana is anything that makes the body stronger. And the word rasayana is often used in regard to herbal formulas that strengthen the body. But there's another kind of rasayana called Achara Rasayana or behavioral rasayanas. And since the mind and body are intimately connected, Ayurveda has a list of prescribed behaviors that encourage the culturing of specific kinds of thoughts and feelings and attitudes and behaviors that can best support a strong physiology and optimal health and an open heart flowing in love and appreciation. So these behavioral guidelines, they actually rejuvenate the body, they increase lifespan, and as said, they culture happiness, they culture a feeling of fulfillment in life, and they culture higher states of consciousness, the development of full human potential. Now, many scientific studies on the mind-body connection, they've shown that every time we have a thought or feeling, some chemical is produced in the body. Now, these neurochemicals, as they're called, they're extremely powerful. And the positive life-supporting chemicals include oxytocin, serotonin, dopamine, and endorphins. These are all the feel-good chemicals. And they're very powerful. For example, endorphins are natural painkillers produced by the brain, and they are at least 50 times more powerful than morphine. So it turns out that our own brain is the most powerful pharmaceutical factory in the world. We just need to know how to use the brain properly, how to produce positive chemicals rather than the negative ones. And negative emotions such as anger and anxiety, depression, frustration, fear, grief, these kinds of emotions, they cause harmful neurochemicals to be produced, chemicals which break down the body's functioning. Chemicals such as cortisol and glutamate and noradrenaline. These are those chemicals that are associated with stress. So interestingly enough, the ancient science of Ayurveda identifies one very subtle biochemical in particular called Ojas, Ojas, which is enhanced through rasayanas of any kind, both herbal formulas and prescribed behaviors. Now, Ojas is the finest aspect of the material created by the body. Ojas nourishes the body. The more Ojas your body is producing, the better your health, the stronger your immunity, more balance is there in the physiology, and it reflects more purity and it gives rise to more happiness. And this is why the very purpose of the Ayurveda Panchakarma treatments that are offered at the Raj is to maintain all the physiological structures and their functioning in such a way that Ojas is constantly generated and maintained at its most efficient level of functioning. It's also the case that our Ayurvedic experts at the Raj are skilled in the technique of Ayurvedic pulse assessment and can identify your level of Ojas in this way through pulse assessment, and then give recommendations on how to increase Ojas in the body. So in one of the principal texts of Ayurveda, it's referred to as Achara Rasayana, this describes Ojas as a fluid substance located in the heart. And from the heart, Ojas circulates throughout the entire body. And as said, it maintains immunity, strength of the muscles, it gives stamina and vitality to the whole system, excuse me, and creates a very healthy glow on the skin. And it's one way you can tell if your Ojas is being produced at a good and supportive rate. So Ojas really supports so many levels of nourishment on the level of physiology. And what's fascinating is that these behavioral rasayanas that we're going to talk about today, they also create a very positive effect on the whole physiology by increasing the production of Ojas. So today I'm going to talk about some of the traditional behavioral rasayanas, and in particular, the ones that Maharishi Mahesh Yogi encouraged. And Maharishi Mahesh Yogi is the founder of Transcendental Meditation, and he led the revival of Ayurveda that is gaining so much attention in the world today. So these particular behavioral rasayanas not only support the optimal functioning of the body, but also provide a very powerful support for the expansion of our ability to love, to experience appreciation and joy and gratitude and acceptance. So I want to highlight that the idea here is to keep these behavior guidelines lively in our mind, but not to strain to remember them or follow them. You know, this is knowledge that we want to have to apply when we have a choice. When we have a choice. We don't want to create a mood of, oh, I'm always positive. You know, we have to be natural. We have to be who we are. And so many times in life, we don't really have a choice in how we respond to the world around us. That's called, you know, having your buttons pushed or a knee-jerk reaction. And we don't want to feel guilty about these kinds of things, because guilt is one of those thoughts and feelings that are not really particularly helpful. So it's not the point that we feel guilty if we don't do these things or that we have to strain to try to do them. It's just that there are those moments in life where we're in a situation and we start to respond, but then we have enough of a separation or an objectivity in that situation where we realize we have a choice as to how we can respond here. And so knowing these guidelines, understanding these behavioral rasayanas, and why they're so good for us, not only for the other people in our lives, but so good for us, it's just great to have the knowledge because we can apply it when we have the choice to be able to do so. Okay, now ideally, these will become spontaneous behaviors, spontaneous right action in every situation. Now, spontaneous right action means action that is life-supporting on every level of life. Something that's actually impossible for the human mind to calculate. But when the mind has opened itself, as we do in transcendental meditation, when it's opened itself to cosmic mind, to nature's intelligence, then we're spontaneously in the flow of that intelligence that guides the entire universe in perfect order. So this is the goal of our TM practice, and that is to gain higher states of consciousness in which all these behavioral rasayanas are our natural, spontaneous response to the events and the people around us. So, as said, we're going to be looking at prescribed behaviors from the ancient texts that will support two things. Number one, the production of ojas in the body. And number two, the expansion of our capacity to love, to appreciate, to accept, to feel joy and gratitude. We want our hearts to be open and flowing in these values. And this is because this is exactly what really brings fulfillment to life. So, the first rasayanas I'm going to speak about, these are the ones to abide by in order to gain the ability of naturally displaying all the right action types of behaviors that are spontaneously expressed in higher states of consciousness. So we need to have these tools. These are the foundational tools, and that is we have to transcend on a regular basis. And that is through our regular practice of transcendental meditation. As said before, we need to open our individual mind to cosmic mind, where everything that is truly right in every situation is calculated in this amazing way that is not the capability of the individual human mind. It's the capability of the human universal mind, which we have access to when we transcend the thinking process. So we need to have that right away because that's what's cultivating the spontaneous ability to behave in a way that's supporting for ourselves and everyone else in our environment. And then the other thing is we need to keep a regular routine. We need to stay rested. And that's because that's the other thing that allows us to have easy access to our own inner compass, to that very fine level of intuition and feeling that's so powerful, where we can so easily sense the right response, the right way to behave, the right things to do. It's all there within ourselves. We have the ability to be completely self-sufficient and completely self-referral, and on that basis, behave in a way that's life-supporting for everyone. But we need to stay rested, and we need a regular routine that maintains that evenness, that equanimity that is the basis for spontaneous right action. And these things we discussed in our December webinar. We discussed the top 10 10 tips from Ayurveda in regard to our daily routine. So you can go back on the website where we post all these webinars and review those at any time. Now, the other thing we need to do is we need to make this, we need to make the development of higher states of consciousness our priority. We need to devote ourselves to the knowledge and the practice that supports development of higher states of consciousness, because what that simply means is we're committed to being everything that we can be. We're committed to unfolding our full potential as a human being and fulfilling that birthright that every single one of us has. So the knowledge that we want to make sure that we are availing ourselves of is knowledge that includes the understanding of the best choices to make in life. And the practices, of course, that we're referring to, meditation, but also asanas, yoga asanas, and pranayama, because there are actually some stresses, and these are stresses often in the spine, that can only be removed by way of yoga asanas. Just as simple, doesn't have to be rigorous. You don't want to push so hard that you strain anything in the body. Just a simple set of asanas, stretching asanas. It's amazing what they do to support the physiology. And then pranayama also is a powerful purifier. It just is amazing in the extent to which it purifies the entire physiology. So the last one in this specific category of kind of our foundational behavioral rasayanas is keeping the company of the wise. Now, this comes up in the Vedic texts all the time. It is a really important behavioral rasayanas because the people you spend time with have a big influence on you, and you have influence on those people as well. But if you are following the points that we just elaborated on by having a regular routine and meditating and making these Ayurvedic choices that support your digestion and support your emotions, and if you can spend time with other people who are also embracing these activities, then you reinforce each other. You remind each other, hey, let's get our meditation in now, because then we can watch that movie. You're with people who are right there with you in structuring a life for higher states of consciousness, for fulfillment. We can really put it simply that way, structuring a life for fulfillment. Because structuring a life for fulfillment also means having fun. It means a life full of bliss and enjoyment. So we're all going to figure out what we need to do to have that fulfillment in our lives. But these little fundamental things, if we can just fit these in as well, it just gives us a fabulous foundation for enjoying life, which is the whole purpose of life. So now I'm going to start right in with these very traditional behavioral rasayanas. And the first one is one of the ones that Maharishi brought up most often. And that is, do what you know to be right and don't do what you know to be wrong. Now, this seems so blatantly obvious. This seems so simple. And we're probably assuming, of course, I always do what I know to be right. I don't do what I know to be wrong. However, you will find, if you pay attention, that you'll be in a conversation and you'll start to say something and you'll think, better if I don't say that. But then just something, you just decide you're going to say it anyway. So these are the little things that creep up in our lives that come under this category of do what you know to be right and don't do what you know to be wrong. And there's a wonderful reasoning behind that. And that is that when we do something that we know to be wrong, this creates a coarseness in our physiology and mind and heart. It creates a conflict between heart and mind, or we could say between the intellect and the emotions. Because going back to our example, we're in a conversation and we're about to say something, and we know it's not really going to make a positive contribution to the interaction that I'm having. But emotionally, there's some satisfaction I'm going to get by saying this thing anyway. So there's that beautiful understanding is there is a conflict here between heart and mind, between the intellect that knows and a little desire, some kind of satisfaction we need to have, which resides in the heart, for better or for worse. And there we have that conflict. And it can be small like that, it can be big, but this is the conflict that is at the source of almost all problems in life. So that's when we want to be alert, because the coarseness it creates is the opposite of the refinement required to allow the heart to flow in waves of universal love in higher states of consciousness. So this is why we want to avoid what we know to be wrong action. Now, here's another interesting point. When we're in doubt as to whether a course of action is right or not, the advice is postpone. Postpone the decision. Because as you settle down, as you go about your good daily routine and you have your meditation, little by little, you know you want to make the right decision. And that right decision becomes more obvious. Your inner conscience, your inner compass will give you more of a feeling of how to go on that. And I also want to share one very interesting comment that a woman said. We were holding a retreat and it was for women, and everyone was, these were all people who were practicing transcendental meditation. And we went around the room, everyone was introducing themselves and saying when they had learned TM, how long they'd been practicing. And this one woman spoke up and she introduced herself and she said she had had really a very difficult life with a lot of unfortunate things that had happened in her life. And she said that when she began practicing TM, she noticed that something really good was happening. And she said, I realized that a long time desire I had was being fulfilled. And that was this desire that I realized that all I really wanted was to remove the hardness in my heart. And there was just dead silence in the room after she spoke. Everyone in that room was thinking, yeah, that's what I want to. I want to remove those limitations that have come about because I got my feelings hurt. I went through a painful experience. And now I don't want to be so vulnerable again. I want to protect myself. And so little by little, we start building barriers around our heart and we start shutting things down. And there isn't that kind of flow of emotion, that flow of love, that appreciation that used to make life so full and beautiful. So this is when we've realized how important it is that we embrace anything and everything that helps take down those self-imposed limitations or barriers and opens us up to our true nature, which is to have a heart that's flowing in love and appreciation. So the next Rasayana is continuing in this vein here, and this is refrain from entertaining negativity. Maintain a positive outlook. And I have a quote from Maharishi that's really beautiful and kind of encapsulates what this is all about. Maharishi said, as we grow on the path of evolution, we grow towards more refined perception. We actually grow towards celestial vision. So always we pick up something nice, whatever there will be. We know we live in a relative world. There will be some beautiful things always, something to appreciate. So we bring that value to our mind and heart. We don't bring dirt or negative things into our mind. We rejoice in something beautiful. That is the vision of a knower of reality. Whatever good is there, that is useful for us. Bad it's not something we choose to bring to our mind. Otherwise, we'll be swamped by so many wrongs. By bringing good to our mind, we develop the power of good. Wrong brings unwanted influence. By bringing good to our mind, we develop the power of good. Wrong brings unwanted influence. So safety first. These are simple things that you know. End quote. Now, this doesn't mean that negativity isn't allowed to come up in our minds. Of course, negativity is going to come to mind sometimes. It's natural. But we just want to avoid entertaining. That's the word there in this Rasayana. We want to avoid entertaining those negative thoughts and feelings, which simply means we don't dwell on them. And we all know that thing where sometimes we just get caught in a loop. We're in a loop. They said this to me, and they shouldn't have said this to me, and I know this person, and I'm never going to speak to them. And we start just grinding away on some specific incident or thought or feeling. But at some point, we can't help it. The mind's gripped by it. These things happen. But at some point, we're going to kind of come away from that grip, and we're going to realize, here I am, just chewing on the same thing again. And then we remember, this isn't helpful to us. This isn't going to solve the problem, number one, and it isn't helpful to us. And therefore, we make the decision, let's just move on to something more constructive. So again, we don't want to strain in our behavior. We don't want to make a mood of, I'm only positive all the time. We want to be natural. We want to be spontaneous. These are the things to remember when we're in a moment where we have a choice. So the next one is continuing in this vein here. And this is a number of Rasayanas kind of put together because they're all along the same line. And in this one, refrain from denouncing anyone or speaking against anyone. Never indulge in gossip. Do not disclose enmities, and never disclose insults inflicted upon you. Now, this takes a bit of discipline and willpower. The reality is we're not really in a position to judge anyone. We've all made whatever mistake someone has made against us. No doubt we have made it ourselves. And Maharishi explained why we avoid finding fault in others and speaking ill of others. He said that avoiding this habit is counted as an essential prerequisite, a prerequisite to the realization of full enlightenment and to the full unfoldment of human potential and to the realization of God. And this is because when we speak ill of others, we actually partake of those negative qualities of those of whom we are speaking. In the Bhagavad Gita, which is the most important text in all the Vedic literature and in Ayurveda, when Lord Krishna gave enlightenment to the warrior Arjuna, he said that Arjuna deserved this blessing because he had never heard Arjuna speak against anyone. it's also true that when we gossip, we spread negativity. So we've heard something negative about someone, and now we tell that to someone else. So now we're polluting the person to whom we're speaking with at the moment. And as said, we're reinforcing those unfortunate qualities in ourselves. So it is a lose-lose situation. So the next Rasayana is basically a positive way of expressing the previous points, and that is speak well of others. Enjoy the good qualities of others. Now, in the Vedic texts, it talks about the fact that there can be those individuals who have very few good qualities, but everyone has at least one good quality. And that by focusing in on that one good quality, what we do is we expand the, you could say, almost attachment of that to that good quality of the person we're speaking with. And that creates a fertile ground for more good qualities to begin to sprout up. And this is an amazing quality in the field of leadership. This is a paradigm or an approach that nobody uses, but is extremely powerful. It is referred to in the Vedic texts as one of the most important leadership qualities. And that is, of course, when you're leading a group of people and there's a problem and there's somebody who's created a problem which is impacting whatever the whole group or company or whatever wants to accomplish, the tendency is to go to that person and let them know what they've done wrong, reprimand them, this is, writing you up 2 more times and you're out kind of thing. This is a completely different approach. This approach basically is, as Maharishi said, the most important quality of leadership is love. And that is because when in your heart you truly want the best for everyone, then when you sit down with that person, you are, first of all, looking to the good things that they have contributed. So you start on that note. And then you move into what it is that they're doing that is maybe indicating this isn't the right place for them. And you really want to think with them, what is it that brings you fulfillment? Where could you really, and you may end up firing someone, but with the best possible feeling in the end, because you're coming from a place of no judgment and no punitive feelings. And that is the innocent power of love right there. You address every situation with a true and genuine concern for the best outcome for all and with no punitive intentions. So enjoy the good qualities of others can be applied in so many situations, and it can be so transformative and so powerfully effective in solving problems where we're all used to the basic, let's not waste time, let's get down to what you've done wrong, and really kind of hitting the unfortunate component head on without first engaging these other beautiful behavioral rasayanas. And now this last one that I want to share is it's very precious. And it is, do good and be silent. Accept good and sing the giver's praise. And here the point is that our expectations should always be in regard to our own action, not the action of others. Since we only have control over our own actions, so we do good. We have control over what we do. We do good and we do it without expectation of reward or acknowledgement, but simply for the sake of doing what is right. Because that in itself gives us tremendous satisfaction. And that, in turn, produces the great positive neurochemicals that support our physiology and support our health and well-being on every level. Now, again, in the Gita, an amazing psychological tome, actually, in chapter 2, verse 47, there is guidance about actions in this regard. The guidance is to act for the sake of action and not for the fruits of action, to do the right thing and do it with full attention. Now, it's not saying that, of course, all action starts with a motivation for a good outcome. So it's not that you have to get rid of your desire for a good outcome. That's the foundation for all action. But once we begin an action, we're not thinking about what we're going to get out of it. We have our attention focused on performing that action with full integrity and attention. And that way, the action will yield the best fruits possible. And no matter what the consequences of that action, you will know that you have given it your best. And in this way, you uphold your dignity and integrity. And as said, that itself produces a sense of satisfaction. And that is the positive, has that positive impact on the physiology. So, and this Rasayana, actually, it takes it one step further because it's inspiring us to always express gratitude to those who bring good things to us. We thank them, we praise them. That is right action. So the last Rasayana, and then I want to open it up for comments or questions, is it's actually just a quote from Maharishi, and it contains within it many of the behavioral rasayanas. So it's a short quote, but it's a very compact, beautiful review of a number of these behavioral rasayanas. Maharishi said, if you cultivate within yourself a natural state of kindness, compassion, love, and forgiveness, you will receive 1,000-fold reward from the surroundings. In order to make full use of the surroundings, it's necessary to develop these qualities within yourself to the fullest capacity. These are merely the potentialities that are within you. End quote. Now, what's being said here is that when you display these qualities that reflect a loving heart, then everything and everyone wants to support you. Everyone wants to be around you. They want to help you. And this is what Maharishi is referring to as making full use of our surroundings. So I'm going to end on this point, and we're going to open it up for questions and comments. But again, this is not in the realm of the kind of positive thinking that's so often promoted out in the world, where you're straining. I have to be positive. Oh, I can't say that. Oh, I won't be positive. Oh, I won't. This is just a general sense of why we choose certain behaviors over others. These are things that knowing them can really be a great help when we remember them in certain situations we find ourselves in. But it's not about, pretending to be virtuous. We have to be natural, spontaneous. We have to be who we are. And yet, very oftentimes in life, we do have a choice. And when we have this knowledge, we can exercise choice in these directions.
Maybe if one does train to be nice, is a good start. Fake it till you make it.
It's a good point. It's a really good point. The thing is, we don't want to do harm. And that's another Rasayana that I was saving maybe for the next time, but that is, we speak the truth, but we always speak kindly. This thing of brutal truth, it's not useful. Again, we inspire people by living principles naturally, and by doing so, it inspires others to embrace that kind of behavior. And when we see in others the reflection of a beautiful heart, we want to support it. We want to acknowledge it. We want to encourage others in that regard. Life is really about two things. Well, I guess we could give a million examples, but we could say, and it is, number one, upholding our own dignity. And number two is upholding the dignity of others. And if we can find our way through that, we've done very well. So we don't want to compromise ourselves for the sake of other people. And that's another very beautiful point in the first chapter in the commentary on the Gita, where love, the point is made that love has to be on the ground of righteousness. It can't be that we indulge others in wrong behavior because we love them. Love has to be on the ground of righteousness, or it is weakness. And so that's where we have to uphold not only our own dignity, but the dignity of others. And we have to be responsible to not support behavior that is not helping their growth and evolution, their ability to live a happy life with an open and loving heart. So it's all very delicate. And the other thing with behavioral guidelines, which is why Maharishi gave very few of them, better transcend, just transcend the thinking process, infuse that field of cosmic intelligence into individual mind. That is the solution, because behavior, the field of behavior is very, it's right and wrong is in context of a situation. You can't say this is always right, or this is always wrong, because there will be a situation when that which is supposedly always wrong has to be done. So this is why these are good guidelines, and they're general guidelines, and they're helpful when as said, when we have a choice. But really, the real way to culture the nervous system, culture the heart, is to transcend on a daily basis. Get the advanced techniques, get the TM City program, accelerate this process of establishing our entire identity, our behavior, everything, by establishing it on the ground of having infused pure consciousness into our individual mind, to be able to function in accord with the laws of nature, spontaneously, naturally. Then we have fulfilled the whole field of behavior, the whole field of love and happiness. We have fulfilled the goal of life. So it is tricky. It is very tricky getting into the field of telling people how to behave. And yet we appreciate these behavioral rasayanas, and we appreciate the impact certain behaviors have on us. We're happy to know how to not harm other people, but it's certainly good to know how not to harm ourselves. I think isn't there that saying something about, speaking against other people or something? It's like drinking poison and thinking the other person will die from it. So this is the kind of thing we want to be alert to. But again, it's not, when Maharishi's looking at all the Vedic texts and reviving the whole tradition of unfolding human potential, behavioral good guidelines was not the priority. It's transforming our brain functioning by infusing pure consciousness and stabilizing it that will take care of everything on every level. So, Charlene, thank you very much for bringing up that point. It's such an important point. Sanjeev, go ahead.
Hi, Candace. How are you?
Good. Great.
Candace, thank you for a very informative session. Would you be able to talk about the symbiotic relationship between these rasayanas and TM and how they feed off each other?
Yeah, exactly. So beautiful. And it's sort of coming back to the point that I was making previously, and that is the more we align ourselves with the laws of nature, with the universal principles that guide the entire force of evolution individually and cosmically, the more we are aligned with those laws of nature, the more we're functioning in accord with that evolutionary stream of life. And this is something that the individual mind cannot calculate. You can't determine how an action that you take. Now, here's just a very superficial example. But okay, we think we want to do something really nice for somebody. So we get them a little present and we take it to them and they open it up and they start to cry because this reminds them this is the exact same book that their daughter gave them many years ago, but the daughter doesn't speak to them anymore. And now they're completely distraught. You intended to do something very good. So that's all right because that's all we can control.
Yes.
So our intention to do good is wonderful, but what is the impact on that action, on the environment, near and far? Because everything has an influence throughout the entire universe. We don't know. We can't calculate. So in order to truly perform right action that is life-supporting on every level, that is a byproduct of stabilizing higher states of consciousness. That is a byproduct of now having established that field of pure, unbounded, absolute, our own Atma, established in our own Atma, established in our own eternal nature, which is one with that universal intelligence that guides this entire universe. Now our actions are spontaneously in accord with natural law. So how this all connects to TM is that TM is what allows us, because you see, what constitutes the individual mind is all our thinking and feelings and biases and likes and dislikes, attachments. This is what constitutes our individuality. So when we transcend our thinking and feeling, now we're opening our mind to our universal reality, to our unbounded eternal self, which is one and the same as that field of the total potential of natural law and the force of evolution. So transcendental meditation is giving us that opportunity to transcend our individuality and open ourselves, allow our conscious mind to touch upon that unbounded reality that we are, that experience of being aware of awareness itself. No thoughts, no feelings, no emotions, just the fullness of pure bliss, just the fullness of pure unbounded harmony, happiness, fulfillment, which is our birthright. So that alignment with the home of all the laws of nature, that even begins to infuse itself before we're established in that reality. So every day we meditate, we come out of meditation, and we bring a little bit of that value of pure consciousness, that equanimity, and that gives us a little bit of more objective perception on the events going on around us, which gives us a little bit more space to choose our reaction. We're starting to release those stresses that cause those knee-jerk reactions, that cause those buttons to be pressed. So these stresses and the fatigue that's there that disconnects us from these finer values of intuition in that area of the mind right before we transcend, those first sproutings of desire and intention. We keep connected to those more refined values of our thinking and feeling, and we automatically are guided by our own internal compass as to what is right and what is wrong. It starts to show up even before we've become established in that home of all the laws of nature, the evolutionary force of natural law. So that's the connection with TM. And on the other hand, because the mind and body work they have a reciprocal relationship. As we're shifting these, as we're supporting the normal functioning of the physiology with these positive neurochemicals that are being produced because of the attitudes and feelings that we're naturally and more easily adopting now because we have our TM practice, that in turn structures a physiology that is capable of supporting these more, what we can say, refined emotions, these more refined values that show up in the mind and the intellect and the emotions. So it's a very reciprocal relationship, and it's a beautiful process of just stepping onto the path of evolution to higher states of consciousness and to God realization.
Thank you.
Great question. Thank you.
Please give an example of the kind of stresses that are released through asanas.
Marsh didn't go into more detail. He said it's often a certain stresses in the spine. That was all that was said. It didn't go into more details in that lecture, but that there are some stresses that can only be released through doing asanas. So that was very motivating for those of us at the time who were not inclined to be so regular on our asanas. It was very motivating. And again, these asanas, we know we have a simple, and maybe we'll go through that one of these days. We'll have a webinar on asanas because we have a very simple set that everyone can do. And of course, the key is not to stretch too far, to push. We don't want to create any strain in the body. We just want to have our attention, these areas where the stretch is taking place. And we know from the positions, the asanas, yoga asanas, that we know that they definitely have an impact on the spine. And so just a wonderful motivation to include those in our regular routine. Okay, what's next?
Doesn't it involve pausing a moment to observe our reaction and find the most appropriate supportive response, allowing the loving perspective?
Yes, but what is ideal is when spontaneously this is our response, that we don't have to kind of calculate. But before that is the case, because it is one of the hallmarks of cosmic consciousness, on the way to God consciousness and on the way to Brahman, unity consciousness, there are these developments that take place. And even before we've established even the first higher state of consciousness, so much progress is happening and so many beautiful things are unfolding. So, yes, when we have that opportunity, and there is a little bit of kind of, you're not sort of gripped by the situation in the moment and overshadowed by it. There's a little bit of an objective perspective. Then yes, and this is why we share this knowledge, because it's so useful. And then we have that, we remember, yes, I can see I'm starting to feel punitive, like I'm going to reprimand. But wait a minute, there's probably a much better way to get a good response from my child if I maybe take a slightly different angle here. So yeah, absolutely, that if we can have that, that equanimity, that space there between the input, environmental input, and our reaction to it, that's very helpful. But all these things develop very naturally. And again, that's why we have to keep emphasizing. We don't want to be creating a mood, it's not a good thing. People, they never want to express anything bad. They never want to. They never want to. They never want to. And then one day they just erupt in an explosion of anger because they've repressed so many feelings for so long. So we're not about repression. We just, again, the whole thing with negativity, it's going to come up. We're going to make mistakes. But we want to recognize that we don't want to entertain the negativity. We don't want to dwell in it. That's where we have a choice.
Can you speak of pain that has been so constant in life that it has become normalized? I don't know who I am if I'm not suffering.
Oh, I'm so sorry, number one. And number two, I highly recommend learning transcendental meditation because this is a deep-rooted stress. And when you say pain, I'm sure you mean emotional pain, emotional suffering. And this is because your heart was broken. And so we want to nourish the heart. And the most powerful way you can do this is to begin to unfold within yourself an inner, inexhaustible reservoir of love and contentment and happiness. And once you begin to experience it, and once you know this abiding happiness is there within yourself, it gives you strength because now you see you can be self-sufficient. You don't have to depend on whether people are kind to you or not kind to you. You have your own inner self-sufficient field of universal love. So as that self-sufficiency grows, and as that stress in the heart gets to be dissolved by the fact that when you transcend the thinking process, your metabolic rate drops so dramatically, you get such a deep rest that the healing intelligence of the body kicks in during that period of meditation. So the stress, the hurt begins to be dissolved. So you have two things going on at the same time. Your own sense of self-sufficiency in terms of your own access to your own inner happiness. It gives you a strength and a boldness now to start to open your heart up. And now that the pain, the stress of past situations is being released, literally released, dissolved, because every emotional situation creates its impact on the physiology. It creates its mark. And that is called the stress in the physiology. Some chemicals, some twisting of some nerve, some vein. And this is what's getting healed. That stress is being released. And it therefore, when it's released from the body, its impact on the emotions is also released. So you have two things going on simultaneously. The self-sufficiency to begin to extend yourself again in joy and gratitude and happiness, and the ability to release those blocks. And they just reinforce each other until suffering becomes something of the past. And I wish this for you with all my heart.
My challenge is a very strong pitta where irritability and anger arise easily. No doubt there is a physiological basis. However, are there any guidelines to help with this so I don't offend people?
I think that first and foremost, absolutely it has a physiological basis, and you've identified it as pitta. And so, I think even calling into our Ayurvedic experts, you just need somebody to be able to give you that feedback about what you can do on the physical level with your daily routine, with the foods that you favor, and so many things that can be prescribed in a sense to help keep that pitta in balance. And sometimes, even though pitta is the underlying cause, if there's a vata imbalance, which so many people in this day and age have, that vata, that air quality, can fan the fire of pitta. So sometimes we have to take vata into consideration with pitta issue also. And then again, just these behavioral rasayanas, just to remember that this anger is impacting yourself first and foremost. So yes, it's great to spare everyone else from it, but first and foremost, let's just get into sparing yourself, because then also you feel guilty afterwards. So then there's that additional burden you take on yourself. But I would start with the physiology. Just start right in with the physiology and get really proper individualized recommendations about what to do, and then it'll just build from there.
Is the part 2 course in March a continuation from today?
I haven't really even thought about part 2, but it will be, because there's so many more rasayanas. I just wanted to focus in on the ones that have such a powerful effect in opening up our hearts. Because it's February, it's the Valentine month, I just thought I'm going to just go for those. And because I wanted to also touch on the very foundational rasayanas of meditation, asanas, pranayama, keeping the company of the wise, these things that will form the foundation for making it so much easier to take on and be successful with the other behavioral rasayanas. So, but yes, there are lots more, and we'll share all of them.
Celeste has a comment. There is the expression about asanas to flex the body before we flex the mind, allowing the practice of TM to achieve its fullest extent by preparing the ground of stress release in the physiology.
Beautiful. Thank you, Celeste. Such a great quote, and absolutely. Both pranayama and asanas, they start refining the activity in the nervous system. And with pranayama, and then you're also really refining the metabolic rate. So you've gotten a good head start before you start meditation, which will take that to a deeper and deeper and deeper level. So yes, it's a wonderful package. Your pranayama, and of course, then with our top 10 tips, Ayurvedic tips, we included in there, a walk, even 10 minutes out in the morning sun. Such a wonderful morning routine gets structured by just appreciating all these Ayurveda recommendations.
Do you teach TM or any other course?
At the Raj, yes, we do. So our guests, I would say almost every single guest who comes to the Raj learns TM. And the main reason they learn TM because they're sitting at the dining table with all the other guests. And so many of them are practicing TM. And then they hear from them, the experiences they have and what it's done for them. And next thing you know, they're saying, oh, can I sign up for that TM? So yes, we do teach it at the Raj, and we do so on the ground that it has the best scientific research behind it, documenting the widest range of benefits, and the subjective experience is also very confirming, and it is in accord with the authentic Ayurvedic texts. It's referred to right there in chapter 2, verse 45 of the Gita. Everything in Maharishi Ayurveda is absolutely confirmed in the texts, 6,000-year-old, time-tested, brilliant texts of the Veda and Vedic literature.
Could you repeat each Rasayana once again to make sure I have written them correctly, please?
Yes, I will. As a matter of fact, maybe I'll just put it right up on the screen. Here they are. And let's start with this, because these are the foundational behavioral rasayanas that then allow you to be more successful in all the other behavioral rasayanas, Achara Rasayanas. So these are the ones we talked about today. Do what you know to be right. Don't do what you know to be wrong. Refrain from entertaining negativity. Refrain from denouncing anyone or speaking against anyone. never indulge in gossip, speak well of others, enjoy the good qualities of others, do good and be silent, accept good and sing the giver's praise. Okay. Okay, any other question?
It would be interesting to see and hear about the programs offered at the Raj.
Yes. We always like to be done within an hour when we do this. So I don't always want to be going through all the treatments in every single webinar because it doesn't leave so much time for the whatever the topic is. But essentially, we offer something called Panchakarma. And these are the treatment modalities of Ayurveda. And they involve herbalized oil massage and steam and purification procedures. And one thing I like to share is that these were originally for the royal families in India, the leaders in India, to maintain their longevity and health and mental clarity. But it even says in the texts that there will come a time when the pollution in the environment is so great that these treatments are a requirement for everyone. And about 20 years ago, we did a study to see if Panchakarma was removing the fat-soluble toxins, environmental toxins, herbicides and pesticides in the environment, the PCBs they're called, because they're very difficult to remove. They have long half-lives. They stay in the body for a long time. And it was astounding what we discovered. And that is 5 days. On the people we tested, we only did 5 days of the Panchakarma treatments. And in that time, 50% of the body burden of fat-soluble toxins were removed. This included DDT, which was so ironic because DDT had been banned in the US. But the problem was we imported it to Mexico. We banned it here, but we imported it, or exported it, sorry. We exported it to Mexico. And then we buy all our fruits and vegetables from Mexico. So everybody still had rather high levels of DDT when we did the study. And those levels came down so significantly. So now we're in the process of doing a study in conjunction with Mayo Clinic on removing the new chemicals that are a big problem, the PFAS, they're called, and they are referred to as forever chemicals because their half-lives, the time it takes the body to break them down, are very, very long. So we're going to see if we can also remove those. But there are all kinds of toxins. There's the toxins that are created by undigested food. So if we have weak digestion, we're not fully digesting our food, then there is a residue, and that builds up in the body. This sticky kind of toxic substance gets stuck in the joints, then our joints are getting stiff and all these kinds of things. So Panchakarma is a rejuvenating treatment, but it is also a curative treatment. And we have amazing results with chronic disorders because Ayurveda goes to the root of chronic disorders, whereas modern medicine basically addresses the symptoms to mask the symptoms, to take away the pain, but it never gets to the root of chronic disorders. And that's why they're chronic. They go on forever. And you have to take medicine, and that medicine has harmful side effects. And this is what motivated Maharishi to actually launch the revival and the restoring of authentic Ayurveda, to restore this tradition that had been lost mainly due to the British occupation of India, the British rule of India, where allopathic medicine was brought in. But the whole motivation was an article that came out in the early 1980s, a research study saying that allopathic medicine, Western medicine, had now become the third leading cause of death in the United States. Our healthcare system itself was the third leading cause of death, and mainly due to harmful side effects, even of medication that was being properly prescribed. And that's when Maharishi just said, it's time that we allow people to take their health and happiness back into their own hands. And literally, he started the whole revival. And it was, those of us who brought Ayurveda to the West, some 35 years ago, that's when it all began. And now it's very heartening to see that, that all of this is becoming very mainstream.
How do you deal with harm doers who are inescapable?
Little by little, you structure your life to move away from the situation. Sometimes we just have to do that. We just find ways to not be in their company, because sometimes there are those. The thing is, when you have situations like that, it's usually pathological. There's usually some mental imbalance, and unless people recognize it and are willing to take action to correct it, it's a very hard situation to live with. And so I think, you just start structuring your life where you don't need to be in that presence as best you can. And also, I think having your own healing time, having your own meditation time where, you can close the door, you can do your meditation, whatever you can structure for yourself for self-care. I think that's also very, very important in these kinds of situations. And I wish you the very best. So it's been very fulfilling to connect with everybody, and we'll just keep doing this and keep unfolding this beautiful, beautiful science of Ayurveda for the sake of everyone's health and happiness. So again, thank you for joining, and we'll see you next month.